Welcome back. Last week when we left off, the grip was a big mess of wood and glue, and it still is, but this week we're going to shape it into something that actually looks like a grip. First step of that though, we got to finish securing it, so let's do that.
When we left off last week, we had just applied epoxy to the handle. It appears to be cured. Right now the peen block is just screwed on, but we want to hammer down the end of the tang to make that more permanent. We are going to hot peen that, but we don't want to compromise the epoxy or risk burning the wood. To protect it, we'll use a wire wrap to hold down several layers of paper towel, and then we'll keep that saturated with water while we work. In hindsight, I wish I had countersunk the hole in the peen block to give extra room for the tang to mushroom out into. That said, between the epoxy, threads, and peen block, I'm not worried about the grip failing. Next up, we'll start shaping the handle. This is my favorite part. It's by far the most transformative step. You go from a big nasty block of wood into a handle within just a few minutes. After struggling with the flat platen for a while, I reset up the grinder into the slack belt mode. That leaves softer, less mechanical looking edges, which as you can see is really best for a rounded grip. As you can see, I left the wood a little proud of the final dimension. I'm going to sneak up on that with hand files. Some people like to use the grinder to get all the way there, but I find that an error with the grinder is unrecoverable, whereas an error with a hand file is usually not that big of a deal. And we really don't want to mess up here in the final stretch. This is a file that I've taken to the grinder and ground one side smooth. That allows you to file just one side of an inside corner. I think some people avoid filing, but if you have a good file, it's actually pretty fast and it leaves a much better finish than you might think. Here you can see the final finish actually looks pretty good, and it only took about 20 or 30 minutes to get it down to this final dimension. Next up, I want to file a bead shape into that center bronze band. The easiest way to start that is by using a triangle file facing downwards to get the groove started. Then we stand it up on edge and we cut straight in to give that perpendicular wall. Then we just need to mirror that on the other side and we've got the bead started. The final plan for this bead is to have a rope-like texture on it, which means we need to cut in some diagonal lines. I will lay those out with some red dicum and a metal scribe, and then I will come back with the rotary tool and a burr to cut those in. Now that we got all the layout done, I'm going to start incrementally refining things. First up, we're going to smooth off the edges of that bead, and that'll really make it pop and look like a separate thing. You can see how rounded and separated the bead looks now. Next up, we want to do the same thing to the diagonals. Right now they kind of look like slashes, so we want to kind of round off those transitions, and that'll really give it that ropey look. We will revisit this part again, but for now, while I have the rotary tool out, I want to add some scallops to the end of the pommel. I want each one of these scallops to travel in towards the center, towards the peen block. It's easiest though to just get the groove started on the edge and then carry it inwards. Now I have swapped over to a smaller burr, and I will set it in one of those established grooves and then kind of rock the tip downwards to start laying out the radial spokes. I was about to shut things down for the day, but decided to quickly file in a border around the base of the pommel.
It is finally starting to look like a dagger. There are a few more things that need to be engraved on it before we do the finish on the wood and the metal. So if you want to check that out, tune in next week. Just hit the subscription button, hit the notification bell, and I'll see you then.